All right. So we do want to acknowledge our slides are quite image rich. And we do want to acknowledge that quite often there is a visual bias in crafting, both in craft practice and instruction. So there's an assumption that folks are able to access information that is shared in images or information that's shared sort of in visual presentations. We want to make sure that our session is as accessible as possible, so we are going to stop and describe images, particularly images related to the stories we'll be telling, using what we call aesthetic alt text or aesthetic description. So we're going to describe both the contents and the experience of the image, so it will be a little bit more detailed than your typical described images. If you do decide to share anything you've created in today's session, we encourage you to do the same. On the screen here are two watercolor panels, things, samplers that I had created. So the top one is 12 squares that are all uniform in size. They all have different sort of abstract shapes and images. So kind of lines, circles, blobs, what look like little eyes, something that looks like leaves. The overall tone is more subdued, earthy tone. So a lot of greens, browns, pale blues. The second panel below that is more geometric shapes. So there's triangles. I don't remember my geometric shapes, but there's lots of rectangles, things with 5 sides, 6 sides. The colors there are more royal colors, so a lot of purples, darker blues, blacks and grays, but with the same sort of abstract imagery and abstract shapes. So blobs, lines, lots of polka dots and things like that. And these are two things that I created just sort of as I'm starting to get into watercolors. I'm going to pass it to Jenny.
Thank you, Dani. All right. So as we begin, we wanted to just get a sense of kind of where we're headed with this session. We've organized it generally around three themes that you see here. And rather than like a traditional lecture style, we're going to cycle through the same rhythm for each of these themes. We'll do start with like a short introductory slide and introduce the image that's there with the theme we've identified. We'll then go into little storytelling vignettes where Dani and I will share our experiences and what these themes mean to us through our making. We'll have a chance then for an activity where you can either engage in reflective practice or in making. And then we'll sum up each section by coming back together and kind of discussing what emerged or connections to experiences that you've made. The three themes that we'll be looking at today are crafting as subversion, crafting as humility, and crafting as community. As we noted before, throughout the session, you're welcome to engage in any of these activities, or just your presence here is enough if that's what's meaningful to you. Um, and we are together going to construct, if you so choose, to share a brief excerpt from one of your reflections today, a photo of a craft you're working on or that you did today. If at the end you choose to share that, we can bring it together as kind of an artifact of our time together. So you can move to the next one there, Dani. So what is crafting? Well, we have an image here of a partially constructed Lego plant that shows the bottom part of an open mouth with red Lego gums, some green background holding it together, and white Lego teeth. And Dani and I had a conversation as we did this. What are we defining as craft? And I know that out there, there are many definitions. There are some more formal about what processes need to go in. There's a whole debate about what is art versus craft. But for today, we want to take a moment and just acknowledge that for us, craft is the act of making something with care. And it's less about the formal product and more about the relationships we develop with the materials we're working with that process of learning with ourselves and when we're crafting in community with the others around us. Um, so craft, we want to like make a space for creativity, not necessarily our artistic talent, but that freedom to explore and to either use words or materials to engage with this self-reflection and um, give yourself permission to make a bit of a mess, to experiment, and something that you can slow down and work on over time. It doesn't have to have a polished outcome. So through this session, we're hoping that you can join us in thinking about craft through this definition, even if it's different from the one that you entered with today.
And so we're going to jump right into our first theme, which, as Jenny mentioned, is craft of subversion. And this is one of the things that really draws me to craft. We'll talk a little bit more about what this means. But the image at the back is a collage that we actually created in one of our staff retreats in our Center for Teaching and Learning, where our team members were put into groups and all invited to sort of reflect on the purpose of education, what we're doing here, why we're coming together in this work. So in this image, there's a number of cutouts from magazines, from newspapers, including words and imagery. So some of the words say, "This you is," "Universities are all about possibility," "Design your own," "Resource," and "Have more time for the things that matter." And some of the imagery includes a person with purple skin tone sitting at a computer wearing a lab coat, a burning building, sidewalk chalk in a hopscotch formation, what looks like, at least in a Canadian university, a traditional university tower with a lightning bolt on top of it. And then a lot of like kind of more communal imagery. So people cooking together, people hugging, somebody dancing, holding a flower. So a lot of mixed imagery here. And this is meant to sort of just set the tone for craft of subversion. We're not going to tell you quite what we mean by this yet, but we are going to share our own stories of how we view this in our own crafting practice. So for me, at our center, for the past, gosh, almost 3 years, I have been hosting a monthly crafternoons. It started as being called Crafty UWO. UWO is the institution that we work at. It's now called Crafternoons in honor of one of our colleagues who is quite crafty. And this is a monthly space that it's sort of, we invite anyone we've ever met who has indicated any interest in crafting, and they just come for an hour to craft. We put it in people's schedules as a meeting time. They can bring their own crafts. We have a plethora of crafting supplies within the center, and it's just time for people to come together and really not work. And in a lot of ways, the point here is to sort of subvert that productivity narrative of we always need to be doing things. I will say there are months where it feels weird on a very busy day, stepping away for an hour to just craft. But that also is really why it reinforces for me the importance of these times together. On the screen is an image of an email that I sent out to our Crafternoon community, reminding them of our October Crafternoon. So, gosh, October was like 10 months ago, many, many months ago. Um, and the really important thing here was the reminder to folks that it says, as a reminder, crafternoons are an opportunity to step away from the myriad of other things demanding our time and just craft or just chat, craft, and enjoy the company of other people. If your immediate reaction is, quote, "I don't have time," end quote, it's possible this is exactly where you need to be. The rest of the email sort of also alludes to the theme. It was in October. In October in Canada, we celebrate Halloween, so we had a bunch of crafty, spooky crafts available. But the really important thing here was reminding people that we need to make time to do these things that are not just our next meeting, our next output, our next piece of productivity, time to just be in community with each other. The space that we create for Crafternoons invites individuals to show up and work on whatever they want so they can bring their own crafts. And we say crafting is defined broadly. So I've encouraged people to create playlists, or we have an ongoing puzzle in our boardroom, or just come and chat. But really importantly, it's our monthly reminder to slow down and be in community together. For me, there are some times when I'm the only one who's shown up to craft afternoons, and I still take that hour during busy work weeks during the month to just sit and craft and kind of step away from everything. And that in of itself feels like an act of subversion, sort of challenging that narrative of always doing. I'll pass it over to Jenny for her subversion story.
Thank you. Um, okay, so I think, let's see here. Some of these fit under two kind of themes. Um, so for this one, for me, it was about subverting the need to always produce and be perfect. And a way that I learned this was through making chainmail. So this unexpected lesson came when I had a very ambitious goal to make a whole chainmail shirt in a few months without ever having done chainmail before. Um, and I was very product oriented. I wanted to wear this to a upcoming Ren fair that has a set date, and I wanted to have this outcome for that time. But as I worked through the process, I realized that there are no shortcuts with chainmail. I had to learn like a new language of like the different gauges are the different sizes of metal rings. I had to learn how to work with them. You have to open each ring and close each ring and feel this little click. You have to interlace them together in patterns that I've watched videos over and over and over again to try and see how it's done. And it was slow work. I learned through experimenting and I learned through making mistakes. And one of the most difficult parts about it, but the most impactful, was learning through undoing. And I think that's something that's not always rewarded in productivity oriented environments. To undo something feels like wasted effort or like you're moving backwards. But in craft, this is often where it allows us to um, kind of recenter, to work back through processes and to learn to do something again. We've talked about Dani and I sometimes with knitting, the act of frogging, which is going backwards, and we'll touch upon that too. But for me, it was a form of subversion because it forced me to slow down and to be proud of the small pieces that I did make, rather than this fast finish, optimize, produce. So you'll see two images here of two very small chain or three very small chain mail pieces that I made. The top image shows, I think it's about 10 silver rings interconnected to create a small piece of it almost looks woven. And below that, there are two that are more, they are also silver rings interconnected, laying flat on a round, leatherish looking background. And one is a bit more dense and intricate, and the other lays a little bit wider. So this will bring us into our first activity. So we'd welcome you to join this in a way that is meaningful to you. We have some reflection prompts, and then we have the kind of like making piece. So again, engage in which feels best to you. We'll take about 10 to 15 minutes for this. But our first one, we have the reflection prompt. What important or controversial ideas can you express through craft or visuals that you would be reluctant to express in traditional forms? Where in your work are you moving too quickly to notice what matters? The making prompt for blackout poetry. Create something beautiful from something undesirable. Choose a news article, media post, email, or other text. Skim the text for words that stand out. Choose words that together send an alternative message, subverting the original story. Black out, cross out, cover, or otherwise erase the remaining words. You can use one of the following slides. We have slides below for your poetry if you would like to do that. Or if you would like to engage in a different way, you're welcome to do that too. Danny, thank you for putting in the chat here the prompts for anyone who wanted to share. And Sabine, thank you for sharing the idea of learning through undoing. So much of the teaching that Sabine has done, or Bean has done, is in critical theory. It's about actually having to unlearn common sense ideas about the world, often inverting how we understand cause and effect. Yeah, and some of that too with like even like decolonial structures. Unlearning is a huge part of the process because you're unlearning what was considered the standard, but is not the worldview or the experience of everybody. And Danny has shared too. I tried this out. We both tried it out. If you want a little bit more of a structured blackout poetry option, the New York Times has this interactive multimedia blackout poetry where you can go through and you select words from the text that you want. I think you get 15 words and allows you to create your own blackout poem there. So if you'd prefer to engage that way, we would welcome you. Danny, for time, should we do maybe 10 minutes?
I think 10 minutes makes sense. And
Yeah.
Christina, we could stop the recording so we're not just recording dead air for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That would be good.
All right, so welcome back to the space. Um, I have our group slides here. Yes, we're going to pull them up. Wonderful. So Christina's subversive poem. So the initial text appears to be from a social media post. Christina, would you like to share a bit about it, or would you like me to read your poem?
Can share.
Yeah.
So I was just scrolling social media, and someone was talking about forest fire skies, which I actually see outside my windows. So I'm wondering if they live near me or anyway, I'm sure there's forest fires everywhere. And the post is about uh and let me find it again because I covered half of it up. It's about it just as we start to think about tomatoes again, we start to warm up to the idea of getting hope for tomatoes. The apocalypse forest fire skies have arrived. Amber and mourning, climate collapse we're mourning is the post. Um, and so yeah, I mean it is all true, but also, took the idea to try to think about what might it be to look at this differently, and so just start to warm up hope again, skies amber and morning.
That's
That's a
beautiful.
little bit different than sort of what you were talking about, because normally like subversive would be, you take something that's sort of you actually disagree with or something and subvert it, but this
Honestly,
is
hope is
this is
subversion.
just real. It just
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
apocalyptic skies. Anyway,
Mhm. Hope can
thanks.
be subversion. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, and that's what sometimes it emerges through the activity as you go. Maybe you don't have an intention or you intend to write something dark. Which is when I did the New York Times one, I intended to write something dark and moody, but the one that came out was quite hopeful. And so sometimes the text kind of leads you, the material leads you. Um, but yeah, thank you for sharing. And it doesn't have to be a huge piece of writing. It can be a social media post. So thank you for sharing. Um, we have Danny's. And do we have any in the text too?
Bean has added something to slide 11. I don't know if they wish to speak to it though.
Oh, I missed that one. Apologies. Thanks, Danny.
Well, how do you add something?
If you have a picture, Rebecca, you should be able to choose a slide and upload your picture, like from your phone
Hmm.
or from your
Okay.
computer.
Yeah, slide 12 doesn't have anything on it if you wanted to add there or if you wanted to
All right,
even.
I'll try to take a picture of what I made.
Okay.
You can also hold something up because we're on
Hmm.
webcams together.
All
But to add
right.
a picture, you would go in the menu to insert image, and then you can upload from
I'll
computer.
just show it to you like this because this is just the preliminary sketch that I'm going to go down to my art studio and paint after this session.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
amazing. Do you want to describe it, Rebecca?
So it started out like this, which this sketch is a little better because of the color, but it's basically a fairy and her head is disconnected from her body. And then I made another fairy. I was trying to make the body realistic. I feel like in my first sketch it was a little better, but I'm sure when I go downstairs to paint, it'll all come together.
Amazing.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
And Bean, would you like to share either in the chat or by unmuting?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Um, yeah, so I just took the reflective prompt and uh, initially I wasn't sure that I had any examples, and then I remember like because I don't know that my much of my um like or I do like zine making and stuff, but I also write about those same topics, so it's not like uh I'm reluctant to express in that form. But I guess one of the things I thought about was like visible mending and how that's like a uh like pushing back against a certain kind of consumerism that I'm also you know implicated in. But that like it feels like this like quiet form of resistance to like like resistance to like the urges in myself as much as like the rest of society to like actually uh like instead of replacing just like fix the thing I already have.
Mhm.
um and yeah, that's like it's such a like it's not necessarily controversial in the sense of like recycling and stuff are widely encouraged, but sort of that ethos of like not buying more, like you have enough, like trying to hold on to that more in my life.
And that like investment in what you do have. And the visible mending is cool too because it's not necessarily trying to hide that or be ashamed that something has gone through use and wear, but like almost highlighting it through the mending.
It's partly because I am not skilled enough to do invisible mending.
We'll lean into that.
That
Thank you.
actually lends her quite nicely to our next topic on craft is humility being.
Mhm.
So we'll come back to that.
Yes. Danny, do you want to wrap up our this section and
Yeah.
for time we can move ahead?
So the idea of craft of subversion is not new to us. Many months ago, I attended a workshop where they talked about how, in a lot of political movements, they weave sort of political propaganda, political messages, sort of resistance messages into craft to kind of hide them, but also show solidarity. And there's a lot of examples of those historically. But when we're talking about subversive crafting and thinking about subversive pedagogy, it's really about challenging these ideas of neoliberal productivity culture. So the slowing down, the doing something different, those moments of should I go to like a real meeting or should I spend an hour in craft and community with others? And also challenging what it means to be productive. In a lot of my recent work, I've been really trying to resist manufactured urgency. So, like other people's timelines, other people's last minuteness, like not shouldering that myself as part of the subversive practice. Um, which really highlights that we don't need to do things quickly to do things well. Often slowing down allows us to engage in it more meaningfully, more deeply. And it's not about sort of the optics of a thing, but it's about kind of engaging in those moments of doing. And then finally, sometimes we actually do our best learning. We'll talk about this a little bit more with humility, but through that slowing down, through creating space to stop finally, and to not just constantly go, go, go. So these were some of the themes that came out for us when we're talking about translating craft logic, craft wisdom to pedagogy. And so we're going to move into our second theme.
All right.
And
Our
I will
second.
actually present the
Yeah.
slides now.
So our next theme here is crafting as humility. And on the slide, there are two images. The first, we see a knit, or sorry, a crocheted square made of yarn that is bright green, blue, and purple. This is from that one that's Danny shared. And to the right of that is another image of some materials I was in the process of cutting up for a paper collage. And our alumni magazine here on campus has this amazing quality paper and beautiful images in it. It's one of our favorites for collage once we are finished with it. And so this kind of, for us, ties into our stories a little bit here. And it even ties into some of the themes from before, because this references frogging, as I said before, with the yarn, the undoing. So if you want to just go into the first yeah, one here. So my story to do with this is humility by learning from materials while crafting. So on the slide, I have two images here that show my relief printmaking. So there's a piece of pink rectangle of pink rubber drawn on it with pen, are these kind of like undulating spiral type images, abstract. There is a tool that was used to carve out this rubber to make a relief stamp and some of those little rubber bits you can see below. And opposite that is a beige paper with black ink stamped using that printmaking slide that I had created. So this and the image of the collage I had before helped me to think about what we can learn from our materials and from the process. So for printmaking, it's considered generally like a beginner-friendly craft, quite low cost, easy to get started with. But I quickly learned that the material kind of has its own language that reading about it and watching videos about couldn't quite teach me until I actually tried. You have to push with just the right amount of resistance to kind of get a consistent line, get the right angle, and there's a flow to it. And sometimes the material kind of points you in a different direction than you had intended. But every cut that you make is permanent and it will leave either a mark or the absence of the rubber will leave a mark for the stamp. So you can't remove lines once they're made. And I had to really change the way I thought about process too, because you want to plan ahead for what you're creating, but you have to think in the mirrored version because one, it's relief, and two, it's a stamp. So it's the opposite way. If you were to write words out, you'd have to write them as a mirror image. So there's all these different processes that you can get caught up in. And I found that letting go a little bit and like questioning that relationship between my intentions and the actual result, it helped me to better understand that control is an illusion and that with every cut that is permanent and it leaves evidence of that process and making a mistake that's part of the final image um, allows you to create something new. And maybe you need to try again with another stamp to get the result that you want. But the material that's left and the evidence of that has meaning. And with the collage piece too, often the materials that we use, like I said, those magazines, they're old magazines, or I like to use business cards, scraps of paper, and like recontextualize them. Maybe I'm cutting away some of the pieces and bringing them together to tell a visual story, but their value doesn't come from being brand new or being pristine and perfect. It's the possibilities that emerge when I rearrange them and reconnect them to tell my story. And so some of my work in pedagogy has been getting us to rethink what we have like as our teaching materials and as our evidence of teaching and our evidence of excellence, and think about the things that we have done and what can go in your teaching dossier that you can reflect on. And a teaching dossier is sometimes called a teaching portfolio, but just where you're bringing together evidence of your teaching experience. But it doesn't always have to be about brand new, innovative ideas and approaches. Sometimes it's reflecting on the things that worked and the things that maybe didn't work. Dani, did you want to share yours next? There we
Um, so for me, I did a lot of like crafting when I was younger, so like knitting, crocheting, but never things that I would consider more art. When I was in high school, we were forced to take an art class. I never considered myself a good artist. So I avoided painting classes, I avoided drawing classes. I always did pottery because when you have abstract things that come out of it, you can kind of get away with it. So I always had this sort of lack of confidence around art because I never felt like it was a skill that I had. And in recent years, I've sort of been trying new things, testing things out, and trying to overcome this like the sense of perfectionism that was deep-seated in me and made me avoid certain art forms. One thing that I started during the pandemic was something called Zentangle, which is sort of a type of deliberate meditative doodling. So the image here is an open sketch pad with a black ink drawing with some shading, various doodles that kind of come together in this semi-organic geometric form. So there's lots of spirals throughout it, both like open spirals and closed spirals, kind of plant type things with little buds, and then lots of shading throughout it. And the thing I really enjoyed about Zentangle is it's sort of bringing together lots of imperfect shapes into like a really interesting finished thing. So even if you messed up one element, one piece, it's always recoverable. And it was more about the process of learning and doing and trying. And if you mess up and you hate the thing at the end, you still enjoyed the process of doing it. And in sort of starting to do Zentangle, I found a lot of comfort with accepting mistakes as part of the art. Like it just became part of the finished product. It became part of the beauty of it. I also am an avid knitter. When I first started knitting, I always chose the most complicated projects. So for folks who are knitters, I would choose lots of lace, lots of cables, lots of complex stitches, um, and they would turn into a mess. And with knitting and kind of going through that process, I've learned how to pause, to undo. So Jenny talked about frogging. In knitting, when you knit something and you make a mistake, you need to go backwards. They call it frogging because you rip the thread out. And the joke is it's like ribbit, ribbit, like the sound that a frog makes. So it's called frogging to undo a knitting project. And there's a little bit of catharsis in ripping all that thread out and kind of going backwards, fixing your mistakes, spending that time with it. Again, it goes back to our first theme of subversion, like challenging that go, go, go narrative, like pause, slow down, fix the thing if it needs fixing, leave the thing if it's okay. So a lot of what I've done in both of these art forms is learning through trial and error, improving over time, and this idea of sort of these beautiful moments of like failure and learning. Um, just noting Rebecca's comment, perfectionism with oil painting. Always feel like other people's paintings are better than mine can ever be and want to, oh, and you want to be an art therapist. That's amazing. I think what you highlight here really is an important thing when we think about crafting is I feel like in modern society, there's like this natural inclination to compare to like your thing to this other person's thing. And a lot of the way that we approach it is it's not really about that. It's about doing it together if you are crafting in community, but it's not really about comparison anymore and trying to overcome that sense of comparison, Rebecca, can be really, really challenging.
Yeah,
But I
definitely.
found,
go.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I said, yeah, definitely. So my sister just has been doing watercolor painting and she's amazing. And she was visiting, and so she told me about the warm-ups she does. And so basically you just divide the page to four boxes and you just like practice the strokes. And so
Mm.
she kind of got me into painting. I used to have my own art studio where I would give art therapy as a volunteer, and I kind of got paid by being allowed to use whatever I want in the studio, paint whenever I wanted, whatever paints I needed. My manager Daphne would get for me, and I would help people, and I would sit there and paint. And back then it was acrylics. I recently started doing oils. Uh, but yeah, I really feel like through art, people could get to this mystical, transcendental experiences. It's not about the end piece really. It's about the process. I know that, but my sister's paintings are so detailed and beautiful, but I guess it's like grass being greener on the other side, and watercolor is a completely different type of painting than oil. So
And like finding your own style. And yeah, it's not
definitely,
bad to want a finished product that you're proud of or to
right.
aspire to be something. But yeah, it's like holding that process and the final product to the aspiration of it that works nicely together.
Actually, I'll show you my Jesus painting. It needs a few more strokes, but this is what I have so far.
Oh, cool.
I
Beautiful
love how
colors.
vibrant the colors are.
Yeah, I love
It's
that.
kind of, there are about like four brush strokes I need to do and then sign it, but with oil painting, you have to wait till it's touch dry.
Mhm.
And so I have to wait at least until tomorrow. So I know that if I work on it today, really I should wait till Thursday or Friday. If I work on it today, I'll just ruin it. That's why I drew a sketch for a new painting.
So that's some of this
I'll
like forcing
resist.
you to slow
It
down.
aside, yeah,
Yeah. Wonderful.
I think
Um,
slowing down
yeah.
is like a fantastic lesson from
mhm,
crafting.
Yeah.
definitely.
So that
Hold
leads
on, make sure I
nicely,
put it
yeah,
back.
into our next activity there, Danny. Do we want to do this one for about 5 minutes maybe instead of 10 or?
We can plan to plant the ideas. This one's actually a little bit
Hmm.
harder to do in a
Yeah.
collective space because it requires finding an object. So
Hmm.
we'll just introduce this idea here. But there's a reflection prompt or a making prompt, or here called an unmaking prompt. So the reflection prompt is if you'd prefer to write, and
Cool.
this one's a little bit simpler. So just what can be learned through failed attempts or undoing a process. So we're thinking about converting sort of our craft wisdom to pedagogy. What's learned in failure? For the unmaking prompt, again, a little bit ambitious for a virtual gathering with set time, but we're calling it compost crafting. And it's about sort of reusing things from the past. Actually, it came out of Jenny's workshop last week where we were talking about composting and this idea of like nothing you do is ever wasted. So compost crafting, if you wanted to get started on this, recognizing 5 minutes is not enough time to do it fulsomely. Find a past project that didn't turn out exactly how you wanted or hoped. Identify 2 to 3 elements of the project worth keeping, so something you can carry forward from that. Write these down on a piece of paper, screenshot or write the elements in a slide. If you do it on a piece of paper, rip it up into its key components. If you do it digitally cut up the slide elements and rearrange them into something new. So this is a little bit more complex. I will paste the instructions here, but we'll give folks 5 minutes to either think through this process. We're not anticipating you'll have completed the process, or work on the reflection prompt.
Mhm.
And so Christina will ask you to or pause the recording. Nobody's ready to jump in. I can just share. I didn't accomplish much. All I did was actually just copy pictures of my artwork from earlier in the slides and start cutting them up into little scrapbooky things. So on the screen here, from my watercolor kind of samplers, I kind of cut off little blocks of just leaves, just circles, and then we started cutting out some of my Zentangle as well. I don't know what it will turn into, but it's sort of interesting how you can shift perspective when you start cutting out pieces of things. So that's what I did. Thea, please go ahead.
Conrad, are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay, can you show your screen?
All right, so
Are you able
this
to
is some.
show it? Oh, hang on. I might have
Oh,
to
yeah.
undo the blur my background. There we go.
All right.
Can you guys see? Maybe come a little bit closer. There we go.
So this is something that I hate. It is the worst project I have ever done. And what's
But-
even more annoying.
Here, wait. So
Tell us more.
And
Yeah.
what's even more annoying is that I drew it after I drew this magnum opus. So basically,
so you felt like you regressed?
yes. So basically, I hate that thing
Okay.
because it just doesn't fit my art style. And also front-facing birds look weird.
Foreshortening.
Unless of course you are a duck. Or no, goose and ducks.
Okay, so do you want to show what you started working on? So I think the biggest thing was
So I'm trying to make one that fits my art style more. I definitely will change it. It still looks kind of bad. But
I love it.
like I'm trying.
But you can see the progress.
Yeah. And
I wish to what's the word? Like
what?
like what's it called when like you I want to redeem myself
Oh, okay.
for that terrible drawing.
But I mean, I think that was also like pretty early on when you started doing digital art and you were still like finding your style.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, kind of, yeah.
So I think like if you had to pick a lesson that piece taught you,
It was find your style or die.
No in between.
That was not what we were expecting to come out of today's
Ooh,
workshop.
can I have a Kit Kat?
Yeah.
But thank you so much for sharing, Conrad.
Thank you.
So the piece I was thinking of during this honestly, I just did a brain game because I couldn't think of something. But then it was meditative. So I remember this painting when I had my art studio when I was volunteering, and so I painted one side was a mountain, and then the other side was the ocean. Except I forget which side was my grandmother, but I inside the mountain it was also my grandmother. And when I moved out of my mom's house into my own place, this painting got thrown away. It was the best thing I've ever created. And it made me thinking I could try to recreate it, even though in the artistic impulse, I don't remember what I did, how I got it to be that way. But maybe I could eventually redo it when I get better at oil painting. Because this painting was acrylic, but I like oil. I like oil because you could do multiple layers at it's the most flexible type of art because it takes 7 days to weeks to fully dry or cure. And so this was my favorite painting, the most cathartic painting I ever made. And I guess the element what I was doing in that is to be able to create abstract art where I put a person in it, but also be that landscape. And so I don't remember exactly what it was I did because this was um 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's
but
interesting, Rebecca. There's a type of writing even I've seen before where someone going through writing a novel writes the whole thing and then their editor said, write it again. And so like what stuck with them
oh,
and what
that
they
happened to me
remembered.
so many times. I'm a writer.
Yeah.
My first novel, I never got it published, but it was called Magic Fiona, and it was about a girl who taught herself how to walk because she was paralyzed and her grandmother helped her. But then there was this spy Soviet Union war thing. I was like 13 when I wrote it, so it was all over the place. But
Hmm.
right now I'm working on a vampire novel called I forget what I called it. Um Clementine from the song oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine. So it's about being lost and gone forever, but not. It's about the redemption arc. So she's human, she becomes a vampire. I think
So
I called it
revisiting that
Clementine Lost
thing.
and Found.
Hmm.
And and then I also wrote this novel, Beautiful Madness. And my friend Daphne was like, I'll help you self-publish it if you break it up into 100-page sections. It was like 500 pages. In breaking it up, I fragmented it and I lost the whole story. I mean, I
Mm.
still have it somewhere in Google Documents, but I
It's all
messed it up
part of the
because I deleted
process.
parts. I took pages out to give to Daphne, and it was going to be published. But I wow, I'm never splitting up a novel again. It's the one I'm currently writing. The Clementine something. And then I'm thinking of also writing Sweet Kitchen Dreams, a novel in the perspective of a cat,
Oh,
which I'll
cool.
have to do research to do that correctly.
Thanks for sharing, Rebecca. I'm
No
just going to share the
problem.
beans comment too here
Right.
in the beans comment. I apologize. In the comments here too. I use this time to think about undoing in the context of using AI tools. I've come across many activities that have the learner use the AI tool and then evaluate, verify, and edit the output. But I wondered about how anchoring bias, where we struggle to let go of the first piece of information we get on a topic even if we know it's wrong. So I'm thinking about how we get learners to grapple with the fact that you can't always undo the impact of using AI tools. Very interesting. And that kind of comes to mind even with like a Google search, where now the first thing that comes up is that AI interpretation that isn't always the most accurate, particularly with medical information. And if that sticks with you, can have impact. Either being a Sabine or okay, is fine. Okay. Again, the balloons, these love to show up. I don't know why I set them off every time. Um,
I'm just gonna
wonderful.
reflect or comment on what Bean had said there, just because I think often when people prompt something and they notice bias in it, they try to reprompt, and a lot of the AI tools are like trained to self-correct, but there's always bias in like that first response too. So like that the digital literacy to understand that, I think that's like a very interesting reflection, Bean.
Mhm.
As I mentioned, a lot of my work is in digital pedagogy, so I spend a lot of time thinking about AI.
Yeah, wonderful. So to wrap up here, we have a slide from humble crafting to humble pedagogy. And it just kind of brings us back to thinking about that. Like one of the most powerful things about craft is that it teaches us, one, to be a learner again, and two, that learning is rarely linear. Instead, it more happens in cycles through trying something, paying attention to what happens, making adjustments, trying again. And every time we redo a stitch or we go back and adjust our painting, we make changes to our digital painting, it offers a learning opportunity and it can help us to inform our next attempt. So even if it's that visceral reaction of like, I hated this, taking the time to stop and think, what about it did I not like? What got me to that place and how can I change it? So I love that about craft in that you don't have to have a final product or be finished making to do the reflection. It can happen while making. And in educational context too, where mistakes are often treated as something to avoid or to erase, like being penalized for not doing something correct and not getting the highest grade. Having things like formative assessment can allow you to do that making and interacting and learning. And I think that's something that we can borrow from craft tradition because they suggest embracing that. So
That's an excellent
practices
allegory.
So practices like the Japanese art of kintsugi, which is shown on the screen here, we have an image of a ceramic bowl or plate that has evidence that it was broken or cracked in areas, but it was repaired with gold. And so it's this idea of visible mending. And instead of hiding the mistake or the break, or these things that didn't work out. As Bean had noted earlier, the same with visible mending for cloth. Repairs are intentionally highlighted, and here them being in gold, is there something meaningful to them rather than to conceal it? And it reminds us that damage and imperfection are just part of this object's history, part of our history, and not necessarily something to hide. So, repair and the act of humility through craft tells a story of care and resilience and continued use. And evidence of struggle isn't always a sign of failure, but it's often the clearest evidence that learning is actually taking place. So we'll go to our next, our final theme here. Um, Dani, when you explore crafting as community. I think you're muted, Dani.
I had somebody always has to do it. So recognizing the time, we're not going to actually have time to engage in our final activity, but we do still want to talk about crafting as community, because this really underlies so much of how Jenny and I come to this work. As I mentioned before, we host crafternoons. Like community is really the core of this. On the screen are two pictures. Actually a year ago, I took myself on a self-imposed writing retreat to Prince Edward Island, which is in Eastern Canada, to finish writing my dissertation. And while I was there, I biked around a lot and I came across this community weaving. And so they had set it up with sticks with sort of natural elements and instructions that say we started this driftwood weaving installation for the Arts and Culture and Diversity Festival. We decided to leave it up as a community collaboration project. Please find some things to weave in. To weave, just go over, under, over the yarn from Creative Rebel Studio. And so this is a thing that sort of sat in this park. Anyone could come up and add to this weaving. And now there's a lot of driftwood branches, and then pieces of yarn, pieces of twig, pieces of fiber, feathers that have all been sort of collaboratively built into the space, which I thought was such a nice symbol for crafting as community. Because every time somebody returns to this piece, more voices, more folks have built on it. In my own practice, as I mentioned, sort of knitting is where I started my crafty space. I've been involved in online knitting communities for many, many years. If anyone is a knitter and familiar with Ravelry, I was part of Ravelry when it was in beta, so I'm going to say 20 years ago, and participated in lots of different events, groups, things on Ravelry. One of the coolest things I ever did on Ravelry was participated in a traveling scarf project. And so the way that this project works is you're assigned to a group, and within that group, every member of the group starts a scarf and sends it to the next member of the group. And then they add to the scarf and they send it to the next member of the group. So by the end, you have a completed scarf with 8 to 15 different knitters having contributed to it. My traveling scarf is pictured here on the right. It's sort of in wintry colors. It was my frosty scarf. So there's like pale blues, pale pinks, a lot of white, purple, a lot of very wintry colors. All of the different people who added did it lengthwise. So I think that there's 10 stripes here from 10 different knitters. And at the top is a screenshot of the note that I put in my Ravelry notebook that has the list of contributors and notes that in its travels, my scarf visited Australia, the UK, the Isle of Man, the USA, and Korea. I still have the scarf, but the scarf is more than just a scarf now. It's sort of a symbol for how crafting can kind of transcend language and cultural barriers. So this scarf traveled the world, different people added to it, but there were no tensions, there were no politics, it was just crafting and community. And it was a really great opportunity. As you sent it along, each person added like a little trinket, a little thing to the box. So you also got opportunities to kind of treat each other and engage in kinship in that way. And it was a lot of opportunities to celebrate differences, learn about other cultures, and enjoy shared interests. So my example is crafting as a deliberate community space. I'll pass it to Jenny for her story.
Thank you. So my vignette kind of about crafting in community has to do with this idea of crafting as identity. So like Danny, I grew up absolutely loving crafting. I had like a little mini loom as a kid. I was always I've been a very creative person. I considered doing a fine arts degree, but ultimately when I got to that point, I didn't have a portfolio of finished works that felt they were at the standard of getting into an institution, but I could write and I liked history, so I ended up doing art history. But over time, and particularly in recent years, craft has continued to be a part of the way that I understand myself. Pictured is a digital collage that I made while I was on maternity leave. I had my first son in June of 2020. So the height of the COVID pandemic, in isolation. And digital collage was a very cathartic experience for me. And with the background in art history and like with COVID, there's this small window to the world I had through social media. So these images of motherhood I'd seen in classical paintings and that I was seeing in social media kind of clashed with my actual experience because I was isolated from my community. So the image shows in the back, it's a classical painting. I believe it's Hieronymus Bosch, but it's like images of plague. And then in the center, there is a painting of like the Madonna and Child, kind of this icon of Mary, the Mother Mary, and the baby Jesus. But uh, surrounding her are kind of shadows of herself. And as the mother looks at the baby, you can see gold strings attaching them, and she's wearing a gold mask. And this kind of, for me, helped to represent this like idea of constantly watching my child and protecting my baby from this outside world, but also that cloud of protection that I had to keep us safe isolated me from others. And I was angry and I was isolated and I was a new mom. And I didn't have that space or time or energy or wasn't able to do an oil painting like I wanted to or didn't have the skill to meaningfully convey that. So digital collage allowed me to do that and work through this. When I eventually returned to work and have worked at the center, I was able to use craft as a bridge. It kind of helped me to build my professional identity too, because I brought these pieces of that, like craft as resistance, craft as identity, and working through this through metaphor into the space here and met amazing people like Dani, amazing graduate students I work with, people through Craft Afternoons, and we had this thing that we could share together in that we were all learning slowly and developing our identity in our community. And it wasn't about making something perfect. The second image on the slide you can see is in the background. It's kind of blurry. It is an image of my son, and it's very brightly colored, and I'm sitting there with him. And I'm actually trying my best with no knowledge of what I'm doing. Just stitching. It was a mountain to put on a shirt for my husband as an anniversary gift when we were at home during the pandemic. Yeah, I know we're running a little low on time here.
So I'm just
But
going to
yeah.
explain the next activity, or
Mhm.
or Jenny, if you want to explain the.
Yeah, so this would be an activity that could go with it, and we encourage you to take this with you and try elsewhere. Our reflection prompt would be, how can spending time with others in crafting spaces support relationality? The making prompt is these intersections collage. So in pairs, create an intersections collage that represents what you have in common with each other. These can be big things or small things. Use one of the following slides in your intersection. You can use text, images, sounds, or other media from your collage. And that can even be bringing in something from today.
And Thea added that her daughter, Alara, I'm assuming, said that your cross stitch looked like lightning.
Okay, everybody says that. Yeah, and it was not my intention, but everybody who sees it thinks that it is lightning. So I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Lightning
I was
Benson.
thinking roots, but I think that's just because we're doing lots of
Yeah.
projects with our plants.
Yeah. So kind of abstract. Yeah.
So we do not have time for this
Mhm.
activity. Um, I think maybe we'll just leave you with our final thoughts and then open it up if folks want to reflect in our last 4 minutes together.
Mhm.
Um, but really, and I'll close the slides because I don't need to share that. Really, what we're hoping folks will take away from this is finding the time to craft. Um, does a lot for how we come to our work in educational spaces. So it can help challenge dominant conceptions of time, encourage humility and learning through beautiful failure, building community and connection. And even though, like my Craft Afternoons plea to folks to come to Craft Afternoons, even though it can feel like it's sort of um, indulgent to take the time to step away to do art, it really is so good for our own well-being and for those communities that we build. So that's sort of what we're hoping folks take away from this is do more craft.
Yes.
Jenny, I don't know if you want to add anything or if folks want to jump in here, but
Yeah, just like it's an opportunity to create together, to be together, to share in space and in quiet moments, and a way of that we can care for ourselves and for others by making together.
we would invite if folks, anyone else wanted to sort of jump in, if there is anything that stood out for you, if there's anything that we said and you're like, that's appalling, we disagree with you, you have 3 minutes to argue
Yeah.
with us. We welcome that as well.
Hi, Lara.
Does
And yeah,
Alara want to share a craft? I
yeah,
see a notebook there.
yeah.
So, you know, like little sticker books where you make it look 3D with stickers?
Oh,
I
cool.
lose a lot of those. So I decided that I would make like a scrapbooky kind of thing with a bunch of them. Don't mind the rug thing.
Very cool. So it's like
It's a bunch
collage
of
with stickers.
yes, it's a bunch of capybaras and stuff.
It's a little bit of your
So
compost
cute.
crafting
Yeah.
because it's materials that you had from a previous like sticker kit that you just had left over. Oh, and then you want to show
I
your
made
sketch?
another thing, but I hate the body. I could not nail it.
Oh, don't sit
Yeah.
like completely.
Oh, wow.
Does it show it?
Yeah, it's
Oh, cool.
Because she's watching like a witch.
Witch Hat Atelier.
Yeah.
It's an anime.
Hmm.
Um,
You have like the 3D
basically,
hat. Yeah.
yeah, basically there's like two types of hats. The brimmed caps, which like have a law, and
And she doesn't like the
kind of vigilantes. That's
Hmm.
called the hats, and both of them need Coco to help them. So I made a mix of the brimmed hat, and the pointed hat.
Oh, what you're doing.
Very
I
cool.
also
Thank you so
want to
much
show
for
you one
sharing.
more thing.
Oh, we might not have time, okay? Oh dear.
And thank you, Bean, for sharing. Yeah, but the zine. I hope this encourages you to continue, yeah, maybe revisiting zine materials outside of this and making time and space for that without feeling guilty. Oh, beautiful. A beautiful creation.
She also considers this her craft.
Yes, yes.
I will say my cats are usually my nemesis to craft because I cannot craft when my cats are there. Imagine trying to
Yeah,
knit. They think it's a toy.
yes. Sewing needles away from
Ooh, I
them.
got say my cats like I was making a streamer for like my birthday party, and these little things kept trying to bop it.
They just want to craft too.
They're gonna absolutely destroy it on the day of the party.
So I am recognizing that we are at time. I can stick around for a bit. I think Jenny can stick
Yeah,
around for a bit, but I don't want to speak for her.
yeah.
But we also want to honor people's time. So thank you so much for joining us for what felt like only like 10 minutes in
Yeah.
community,
Right.
but it was actually 90 minutes of chatting. And thank you all for sharing so much.
Thank you. I have
Mm.
2 hours before I have to do anything, so I'm gonna go down and try to paint my thing. Nice, yeah.
Good. Glad you're
Wonderful,
inspired.
Rebecca.
Thanks.
Thanks
I
all for
enjoyed this
joining us.
meeting. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Yeah, and feel free to share if you want something as part of our collected
Right.
collage.
I enjoyed all three themes. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you, Rebecca.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Danny. Thanks, Jennifer.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Take
Let
Bye.
me turn off the
care.
recording.
Bye.